I want to call this meeting to adjournment. Beginning of this meeting. I see we have quite a few interested residents tonight, and I want to welcome you all. And I do encourage you, if you haven't signed up already, can you hear me? If you haven't signed up already, please do so. If you have any comments to make, please sign up now, okay? With that being said, would you all join me in the pledge to the allegiance of the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first item on our agenda tonight is Community Development and Planning Director's Report. Director Kerry, would you please?
Yes, thank you, sir. Town staff just wanted to inform the Planning Commission that we did administratively approve a temporary 800-square-foot firework tent that will be located in the Kroger parking lot from the dates of June 19th through July 5th. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Number 2 on our agenda tonight is upcoming meetings. Tuesday, June 20th, 6:30 p.m., we have the Board of Historic and Architectural Review meeting. Also on the 20th at 7:30 p.m., we have the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting is canceled for June 20th. Then we have a Town Council Committee meetings. That's June 26th, 3 p.m. Town Council meeting, Wednesday, July 5th, 6:30 p.m. here. And if warranted, which I'm sure it will be, July 11th, the Planning Commission meeting. Okay. Now at this time, we have public comments. The public is invited to speak to the Planning Commission on any matters except scheduled public hearings. Please use the sign-up sheet, which I hope you have. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. Any required response from the town will be provided in writing following the meeting. Okay, we have 10 people, someone scratched off. Was there anyone that wanted to sign up before we started this? Is there another sign-up sheet back there? No. No? You want to get one? I just said it. Just said it? Yes, just add your name, sir. I'll add your name. Okay.
Jason Witcher, 325 Grace. Yeah, WIT.
Anyone else?
Diana Martin.
Where's she at?
Oh, you're in there. That's
I'm
just,
sorry.
Thanks.
Who else? None? Okay. Starting with those who signed up. Mr. Bill Harris, 329 Grace Street. Sir, you've been here often enough. State your name and address for the record, please.
Bill Harris, 329 Grace Street. Yep. Chairman Bryant and members of the Planning Commission, tonight you guys are tasked with coming to a decision on whether or not to recommend Town Council approve the rezoning request by Mr. Luter to have the property known at 10 Grange rezoned as a PMUD. Also, it's a night that 6 additional special use permits will be discussed. While the Town Council has heard a lot of public comment on the special use permit request, there has been little said by members of the Planning Commission about whether or not a PMUD is actually a good thing for the historic district. In our opinion, the developer certainly has not made a convincing case that the rezoning of the historic district into a PMUD is, on balance, a good thing for the town. The town has been told the 10 Grange zone PMUD would provide a revenue stream to the town both in short-term and long-term, but solid numbers, along with the specifics that support these numbers, won't be revealed by the developers unless they are assured a rezoning approval. Approving something with so many unknowns seems dangerous at best and ill-advised at the very least. So perhaps tonight is the night citizens will finally hear our planning commissioners provide their understanding of the PMUD and its potential impact on Smithfield. As you consider all that is before you this evening, please remember that the comprehensive plan and the existing zoning requirements direct the commission to vote in a way that is beneficial to the town and its citizens, rather than vote to please a developer. To borrow from the medical profession, the commissioners should proceed in an effort to do no harm. So, do the special permits request do no harm to Smithfield? At recent meetings, the development team has said that the primary reason for the special use permit requests is to increase the profitability of the overall project. The density waiver, which would allow the developers to build more than twice the number of dwellings allowed by the existing zoning, will have the effect of more than doubling the population of the downtown historic area. Does allowing a waiver for this density restriction do no harm to Smithfield? Absolutely not. In fact, the opposite is quite true. Doubling the density currently allowed under the existing zoning would place an incredible burden on the ability of our public services to adequately do their job. According to a letter that all of you received from the superintendent of schools, the number of students projected by the increased density will overcrowd our schools, require the hiring of more teachers and support staff, and require the purchasing of additional buses. Currently, there are no specific numbers attached to the developer's proffers regarding helping to pay for these services. That means, of course, that over the next several years and into the long run, the town taxpayers, who are taxed by the town and the county to support public schools, will have to absorb this financial burden. You also have received a letter from the chief of police saying that if the development is approved under the special use permit, the police department will have to hire at least one more officer and purchase the equipment necessary for that officer to do the job. Another negative byproduct. You have received similar information from our leaders of fire and rescue and EMT providers. If the Grange is allowed to develop at double density, fire and safety will need to increase the number of fire safety vehicles, firefighting personnel, and the town again will have to absorb the financial burden. It just seems counterintuitive to say yes to a request on the part of the developer that will result in reduced public services, overcrowded schools, and place increased tax burdens on the citizens of the town. The other special use requests are also designed to increase profitability. Setback waivers, reduction of parking spaces, and requesting apartment buildings taller than the current zoning limits are all designed to allow the developer to put more dwellings into the Grange neighborhood. Speaker after speaker.
1 minute.
Speaker after speaker has argued that there is simply no place for four-story apartment buildings in the historic district. To their credit, at the last meeting, the developer said that they have to have the four-story apartment buildings to maximize profit, and if they do not receive zoning approval to go above those height restrictions, they would have to withdraw their application. When Commissioner Pope suggested that they add another three-story apartment building, the response that he got was doing so would encroach on the existing green space within 10 Grange. That seemed an ironically ill-timed response, given the fact that one of the development team had not 10 minutes earlier bragged upon the fact that the development, as planned now, provides for at least 40% more green space than required. Adding a three-story building would take away from some of that space, but would increase the overall number of apartment units and save the town from the ugliness of the four-story apartment buildings being the first thing our visitors see when they turn onto Main Street into the historic district of downtown Smithfield. One last thought. If the commission feels compelled to recommend the town council rezone as a PMUD, please remember, you all can still decide to reject any or all of the individual special use permits. We are counting on you guys to do no harm. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The second person signed up tonight, Ms. Mary Harris.
Good evening. I'm Mary Harris. I live at 329 Grace Street. Chairman Bryan made a statement asking that we go to the property and imagine the development that Mr. Luter has proposed. I did just that. I came away thinking that it is not what Smithfield needs. It will not add any character to the downtown. It is just too much. So I'm asking you to spend a few minutes imagining what this space could be that would add to the character of Smithfield's downtown and small town charm. There are many visions that come to my mind. Perhaps as you stand on Main Street, you can see a green space, park-like setting and an abundance of trees, a natural setting that provides a warm and inspiring welcome to those who visit and live here. Perhaps at the front, a visitor center with a well-landscaped parking lot area to encourage parking so that one can walk from this end of Main Street to the other end of Main Street, also providing for overflow parking for Main Street Baptist Church, which remains a very important piece of the downtown historic district. Perhaps an art studio could be located there, perhaps something that honors the history of this property and those who founded Smithfield, perhaps a picnic area and a large and welcoming play space for our children. Perhaps some amenities for the townsfolk that really make this a walkable town, like we used to have in Smithfield. The possibilities are endless. There's a big difference between a walkable residential area and a truly walkable town. What we are looking at here is a lot of housing, a few businesses, with sidewalks and some outdoor space. In my opinion, this does not add anything to the goals of Smithfield. We are not looking at walkability for our town from the right perspective. To make a town walkable, you need to remove the need for a car from the equation completely. So how do we do that? For many years, this town was walkable. We had the essentials of life in downtown that met the needs of everyday living and made it easy for residents and visitors to park their cars and not use them. We had a grocery store, Little's, right? We had a hardware store, Wen's, a pharmacy. We actually had a couple of markets as well. We had a set of department stores. We had Peebles, Delk, Ben Franklin, all downtown. We have been stepping backwards for the last 30 years instead of moving forward on walkability and reduced traffic. However, we continue to tout our desire in our comprehensive plans to reduce traffic and make Smithfield a walkable town. This development does not get us moving toward that goal. In fact, it does just the opposite. It will bring increased traffic and less walkability. A headline from the Daily Press that I read yesterday is "Trash, Traffic, and Constant Noise" in an article about parts of Newport News. If we do not start limiting and mitigating the impact of development in Smithfield, the Smithfield Times will be able to run this same headline. If a PMUD is allowed to be built on this property, we can expand this headline towards like congestion and gridlock. Is this our future? Is this the vision you see? It is not the future I envision. So again, I ask you to consider alternative possibilities for our very valuable historic area. The zoning change should be denied. Last week, I posed some questions to the town council that I will ask of you. Why aren't we concerned about a plan that, due to its density, will bring a 160% increase to homes on that side of town? Why aren't we concerned that the traffic estimates are over 5,500 trips a day on residential streets where the town is already receiving complaints about traffic, speeding, and associated noise? Don't you think this is a ridiculous number? The exact quote from VDOT is 5,541 daily trips on the roadway networks. Why aren't we concerned when we know the town infrastructure and current services can't handle the new demand? Why aren't we concerned about the potential cost to taxpayers? No one will answer this question. What is the number? The message being sent is change the zoning and then we'll let you know. Really? Our message should be no public money to support a private developer, period. Why isn't every single member of the Planning Commission and Town Council asking questions that get to the heart of what will really happen in this small town and the charm of Smithfield? Why does it feel to me like you don't care about the concerns of the citizens? This is not right for Smithfield. You need to deny it. Thank you.
Ms. Harris, thank you. Mr. Rick Linier Jr. Yes, and state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, sir. That works well. That does not, there we go. My name is Rick Linier Jr. And let me start by setting my timer because I want to do this right. Here we go.
Mr. Linier.
Thank you for your-
Mr. Linier,
Sir, yes, sir.
your address, please.
Yes, sir. 706 Cedar Street.
Thank you. Continue.
Indeed. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your energy, and thank you for your expertise. As I sit here and listen to you take shots, complaints, thoughts, feelings, you do it with grace, and I appreciate that. So I hope to not waste your time nor my energy as well. Who I am Rick Linier. I'm the son of Richard and Jessie Linier. I say that so proudly. Husband to Symphony, father to 3 awesome people. I get to live with them. I look forward to them moving out soon, though. And I am a proud citizen of Smithfield. I haven't been here long. As a matter of fact, it will be 3 years, July. And the reason by that is because of my father losing a leg. Long story short, this has been a blessing to be in Smithfield. I'm speaking because my parents aren't here. They're celebrating my oldest sister. She just retired over 30 years teaching in the Chesapeake school system. Can I get a round of applause for teachers and those folks? They're awesome. So since he's not here, you know what has to happen. There has to be a Linier speaking. I get to be that person. Thank you. He left some questions and he left some answers also, just like my dad would. So let me just read these questions to you in regards to a concern that is a burden to him. And I say burden because people who are perfectionists want things to be done right. If you know anyone who lives by a high standard. So I'll ask these questions in the spirit of Richard Sr. Why is there a need for a larger open BMP pond on Main Street? Will closer parking be provided for members of Main Street Baptist Church? Will the BMP pond be a retention pond used to hold stormwater and not release it, or a detention pond used to hold back stormwater and slowly release it? These are questions that he would ask if he were here. In addition to that, his answers to these things. It's quite simple. You put an underground BMP pond on Main Street. To make it aesthetically pleasing, you put a parking lot with shrubs, trees, and flowers, because it's Smithfield. And Smithfield's awesome, is it not? It is. It looks good. I like it here. A parking lot on top of the underground BMP pond would be across the street from Main Street Baptist Church, and it just sounds right. It just sounds right. So here's what I believe. First of all, I'm not a BMP pond specialist. I don't watch National Geographic like looking for these things, but I know someone who does, and it's my father. He wants what's best for Smithfield. And with that being said, I trust his judgment, I trust his expertise and his research.
1 minute.
Yes, it is. So with that being said, Smithfield's too special to put something preventable like an open BMP pond right on Main. I think we can do better. I think this town deserves better. It deserves better, and I know you all will make the wise decision because of your counsel. So with that being said, I'm done. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Linier. Diana Martin.
Hello, my name is Diana Martin. I am a resident of 325 Gray Street. I am coming to you today to ask you to not approve a PMUD zoning for this location. First of all, there's a couple concerns I have. And I've not been able to attend many of these meetings, as many in my age group as I have small children. Today is actually my first day of summer break. I am an educator. So work, family responsibilities have prevented many from attending. And I can say that with honesty because I've spoken to people and I have yet to meet one person who supports this. Many, again, are not able to attend. So my concern is that a PMUD approval would take the power you as a entity supporting our town have to protect us, to protect our historic district, which is so important. This is one historic district that was always looked fondly upon when I worked with the Department of Historic Resources. It was always seen as being respected, as something that was beautiful. And I want to see that protected. And right now we have a few issues that are very concerning. For example, traffic. We don't have the infrastructure to really support as many people that are looked at moving in here. It's not a walkable town. I was almost hit by pulling out of my driveway to go to work one morning. Garbage cans were up in front of the way. I could not see a car come speeding down the road and almost hit me as I'm pulling out of my driveway in my residential neighborhood. That's what we are dealing with the traffic problems. My kids cannot go across the street without me walking with them because there's almost no break during certain hours. That, if anything, is the opposite of what we're looking at. There's a couple questions we have, like, for example, where are we in getting a 4-way stop sign or a 3-way stop sign for the streets that run off Gray Street? I think that's something we need to look at. And then why are we putting a main entrance/exit on a residential street? Shouldn't that be something for a main road, as has been done with other areas like Cypress Creek? A residential street is not a main entrance street for a major development. There are a few other issues. Again, the integrity of this historic district. In our historic district, we've got some beautiful homes and people who spend a lot of time and energy restoring and maintaining those homes. By the way, some of those people are selling or trying to sell at this time due to the issues with traffic and what's going on here. Somebody who put a lot of energy in beautifying and restoring, and one of these older homes is just left. Others are talking of leaving. This, by the way, is what happened with Hampton. I have family from Hampton. I grew up, I saw it. Many beautiful homes are now being torn down because the people who were able to maintain those are gone. So we have homes. We've got Georgian styles, federal, Victorian, vernacular Victorian homes here. When I saw the presentation Luter made, I saw very little that actually represented what's already there. What I saw was an imitation of some of the stuff they're building in more of the urban areas where they're throwing stuff in York County and parts of Hampton and what really looks like Suffolk. Do we really want to be that? A district that we looked upon with pride when I was with the Department of Historic Resources? Is that what we want to become? And that's what we're looking at this point in time. I have some other questions. There's one thing that really, really concerns me. We need more details on the proposed cost-sharing agreement. I'm really worried about that. Why don't we have a definitive number or something close to that? That's almost like going in and buying a car or a house without saying, oh, yeah, I'll pay whatever you want. Yeah, let me go ahead. I agree to that. We need numbers. We need information. What is our responsibility as citizens in the town and county?
1 minute.
Are we going to be hit double through our taxes to pay for this? As a civics teacher, I kind of understand how taxes work here. Is it something that's going to affect us, cause our tax rates to go up for the county and the town? Or are we going to pay more for services to offset that? What's going to happen to us? Mr. Luter talked about public services amenities. He mentioned a pool. I don't know if the pool is still something that's listed in there, or a pool for their community. Is this pool that's going to be built a community pool for Smithfield, for all of the children in Smithfield? Or will it exclude people that do not live in this more expensive type housing that he plans to build? Because that's what it almost sounded like. Is this something for all of us? Or is this something for those elite few that could afford to live there? By the way, as a teacher on just my salary, I could not afford those homes. So there's a lot that you guys have power to protect us from.
Your time has expired.
We're trusting you.
One moment, one moment. Ms. Martin,
Yes.
not to be unfair, but I have a question. I probably should have asked it of some of the previous speakers. But I'm asking the question in order for this planning commission to understand clearly about what the residents of this town would suggest as a solution to a vacant lot on one of the main entrances to this town that does not reflect Smithfield's vitality.
There's
Okay,
been-
it's an empty lot full of parked trucks, broken concrete. It presents no aesthetic beauty to what we have there at this moment. And just a simple question, a simple answer. What would you put there?
There's been a few people that have come with ideas. I have ideas as to
What would
what
you
I
put
would
there?
love. I'd like some green space, maybe a community pool, maybe some parks. If there were a farmer's market put there, then it would be something that would put people out on the main road. His buildings that look like buildings that are already here, but not this mass density of people. We understand, all of us understand, a development's going to happen, but something that's there to benefit this town, not shove as many houses in a spot. Green spaces, parks, community gardens is something a lot of people have talked about.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Langford? Pritchett? You can correct me, sir. How do you pronounce it?
Pritchett.
Pritchett? Okay.
Let me give it a try.
I thought I'd give it a French variation. But
Lanford Pritchett, 5312 River Landing Trail, Smithfield.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think of myself as the new kid on the block. I've only been here about 5 years. I hurt myself to get here. I'm a retired architect. I've worked on some of the world's most challenging projects, including the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, the world's tallest building. The longer story is I'm an 8th generation Virginian. And since I was 1 year old, I was coming to Smithfield every summer. When I finished school, my dad made it clear what my future was by changing the locks the next day. And at that point in my life, I'd seen 2 states, Virginia and Carolina. Since then, I've been to all 50 states, all provinces of Canada, and excepting Antarctica, which I have no plans to chalk off the list, all continents. I've lived in Sydney, London, Buenos Aires, Dubai, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and other socialistic countries. I am tired of big city problems like traffic, crime, and lines. I moved 2,000 miles to be here for those reasons. My second choice, for what it's worth, and Colorado was beautiful, 30 years almost. My second choice was New Zealand. Talk about the project a little bit. The Grange. This is the front door to your town. And I like the pig on one side. I like the park on the other side idea, and I'm going to get into that in a second too. Why did I pass up all those other things? I want you to remember these 3 words: small town charm. I don't like this 40-some foot wall at your front door. As you come from the stop, that's your main entrance to the town. That's what everybody's going to see. It's a 40-some foot wall. And oh, by the way, I'm not a fan of the elevations that have been shared of that hotel for what fits into the rest of town. I also have concerns about the farmer's market. Mr. Riddick might be interested in this. I really don't know the numbers, but as I understand it, the people that are going to the vendors at the farmer's market now pay, what, 50, 75 bucks to put their booth up for the day, whatever. And I think that's a totally different profile of tenant than what's going to be in the new farmer's market building. How many people are going to fit? How many people are going to want to lease space for 6, 12 months in that for just being there for Saturday mornings. And what happens if that space is empty and nobody leases it? I wouldn't want to see that contract. But the biggest issue with it is traffic. The site plan that I've seen shows 825 parking spaces on that site. With that many parking spaces, it's going to create thousands of more trips per day through 10 and Main, through the stoplight there. The only way I can see to placate the demand for traffic there is to put in something at 10 and Main that's not that dissimilar to what is at Cypress Creek in 10 right now, and with the hotel sitting there, there's no space for it. And I also disagree with the need of housing in Smithfield. Put it in Carrollton or elsewhere in the county. So going forward, get rid of the hotel and all the housing. And to answer your question that you threw at the last lady, make it a park.
1 minute.
A dog park, swimming pool, pickleball courts, enough parking for the vendors and the consumers for the farmers market. If you do make it a park, you can call it Pierceville Park or Luterville. I don't care. But the citizens here do not appreciate this job. They don't want to see it go. I think a nice park there is your best way to go. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bob Delinsky.
Good evening. My name is Bob Delinsky. I live at 210 Kerry Street here in Smithfield. And I had a very similar talk that I gave to the town council last week. I want to discuss the traffic issue. On Kerry Street, there was recently a traffic study that was done back in April. 4.5 days, 11,305 vehicles moved up and down Kerry Street. And that's an average of 2,512 vehicles per day. Over a 14-hour day, that's 42 vehicles an hour going up and down that street. Now, down near Gray Street at that intersection, those folks don't have off-street parking. They have to park on the street in front of their homes. And those vehicles that are going up and down there, there's dump trucks and all kinds of heavy equipment going up and down there, and there's not enough room. There's about 1.5 lanes left over. And so these vehicles come around the corner, accelerating. I'm scared to death that someday somebody's going to be trying to get into their vehicle, and they're going to be hit and killed. And that's going to fall on y'all if we don't do something about this. And that's without the Grange development. They say 5,541 extra trips per day. The way I look at it, about 1/3 of those is going to end up coming down our street, 2,000 trips a day. In a 14-hour day, we go from 179 vehicles an hour to 322 vehicles an hour. That's crazy. I mean, I try to back out of my driveway, and I've almost gotten hit multiple times. In a day, I might, 2 or 3 sometimes. And we're talking about walkability. With that number of vehicles going up and down one of our residential streets, this town is not walkable, not safely. We need to find a way, if you're going to put some development in there, and we all agree that at some point something is going to go in there. I don't like the idea of the concrete slab with all the trucks parked on it. I don't want that either. But I sure as heck don't want a 40-foot wall. I mean, we protect Church Street, the entrance corridor, like it's holy ground, and here to the other entrance to Main Street, we're willing to put a 40-foot wall out there. We need to widen the streets, on Route 10. We need to lengthen those right and left turn lanes to allow for those vehicles that are making right and left turns, that traffic already backs up to Church Street on certain days. It's only going to get worse with 300-plus new homes in that development. You know, I mean, we're losing parking for Main Street Baptist Church. We are going to add more trips up and down Main Street. It's 25 miles an hour going up and down there. It's going to get tied up. We need at least one left turn lane to turn into the Grange development there. The traffic is just too heavy. The current infrastructure is inadequate, woefully inadequate, to handle the extra traffic that this particular project is going to bring. I really would respectfully request that you guys listen to the citizens who live in this every day. I don't know one of you who lives in our area who has to put up with this every day. But I would suggest that you come over and spend a little bit of time there and see exactly how difficult a situation this is currently. Thank you.
Mr. Dolinsky, same question to you, sir.
Yes, sir.
What would you put there?
I mean, I'm not opposed to putting some residents in there, but that density that's proposed is just way too much. And it would be nice if we're going to put those homes in there, put a grocery store in there, put something else in there that we don't have to climb into our vehicles and drive to the other end of town to be able to take care of the dry cleaner, to go to the grocery store, to put a pharmacy in there. Anytime I have to get one of those things, I have to get in my truck and drive to the other side of town. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up is Mr. Bob Heins.
Bob Heins, 216 Washington. Steve Stewart's editorial in the Times last week captured the essence of where many citizens stand. While I'm not at all suggesting anything illegal has been done, I do have something to say about the process. This whole thing has been somewhat of a flim-flam to the public from the start. While the overall concept of the incomplete presentation of the Pierceville project is a good idea, there's some things I'd like the Planning Commission to consider. In March of last year, I was asking BHAR members that if they had a say in a 60-foot height request, how would they vote? I was interrupted and advised that the members had no idea what I was talking about. As I continued, I also stated that I was not against development, but simply wanted to know how they would vote. All of that's in the March 2022 BHAR minutes. I had emailed back and forth with the town official in an attempt to find out who the individual was that first floated the idea for the 60-foot request. Never could get an answer.
Mr. Heins,
Yes.
if you want people to hear you,
I
the
thought
microphone.
I got to get closer to this thing. Okay.
Okay.
I didn't want it to echo. But an answer I did get was that this particular proposed PMUD was put together by a number of entities comprised of town officials and outside consultants. A few months later, after a meeting, I was very sternly rebuked and told to stop talking about the 60-foot situation. I was told it was put in the PMUD by mistake. You folks didn't spend much time debating a mistake. I was also advised that I'd been told this previously. Were you told this? If so, then I'll take back what I just said. Further, I was told that if people on Gray Street were concerned about traffic, they should just move. These things were said to me by one of the persons that I was previously advised was involved in the drafting of the proposed PMUD with all the by right zoning ordinances. Maybe those that want such as this are the ones that need to move to those areas that are exploding with tall buildings and burgeoning population growth and traffic and leave the rest of us here. It has seemed obvious to many that this PMUD was not designed so that a builder might find the property attractive to do a project, but I suggest that Mr. Luter's project is what begat the PMUD. This may be normal procedure. Dr. Pope threw a wrench in the possible easy slide in when he proposed rewriting some of it to make them ask for the variances. We're now hearing all the variances are being requested. Oh, let me correct that. At least some, if not all, are basically being demanded. The statement that if the 4-story apartments are not allowed, the project will be scrapped. Talk about holding a gun to the town's collective head. If the question is asked, would the other requested variances draw the same response? And now, everything must be approved now. What are the plans for the intersection of Main and Route 10? Many times the day it's really busy. Fact is that Main Street going south and Route 10 are just glorified two-lane country roads. As regards 4 stories, what if Beale Park was somehow able to be sold and turned into residential housing? Would those of you that live over that way approve apartments even up to 4 stories? The not in my backyard statement at the last meeting was quite condescending and demeaning. It reduces citizens' input as to having no value except pure selfishness. Despite a comment to the contrary, the discussion of building height in this conversation is only relevant to the historical district concerning overheight buildings. Hampton Inn is not in the historic district, nor is it residential housing. In fact, due to zoning height limitations in both the county and the towns in the county, I doubt that there are any 4-story apartment structures anywhere to be found. I guess the town of Smithfield will have to be the trendsetter and have to set the precedent. The glossing over as regards traffic also assumes that there might not be further development at Middle Swamp Road in the future. There's a lot of open land out there. Mr. Yoko never got a satisfactory answer to his question about traffic flow situation because there is no satisfactory answer. Mr. Luter selling the part of the property for the actual houses to Mr. Rowe was kept quiet until the question was asked in public a few months ago. Why was that? The traffic and population density is too much. Retention pond's a problem, aesthetically and safety-wise. Parking for the Main Street Baptist is a problem. Building heights are a problem. The public-private financial details need to be spelled out better up front. Is the farmer's market as conceived viable? Where is the business plan? No elevators in a 3-story luxury apartment building? I quote from my comments to Bihar in March of last year. The group of citizens concerned about this are not trying to stop development. They would just like it to be sensible. Bottom line is this. The proposed project is like attempting to shoehorn a size 10 foot into a size 5 shoe. Something certainly would be good there, but this plan is currently proposed is just not a good fit. Thank you.
Mr. Heins, what would you put there?
I kind of echo what the other people say. I haven't put a lot of thought into that as such. Houses would be okay, but not with this kind of density.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm fine with residences or even some other things that people have suggested, but I'm not an architect, I'm not a builder. And unfortunately, it's like I've said before, people typically don't come out to stuff. 1, people might think that they can't fight town or city hall. 2, they figure your elected officials are doing the job.
Yes,
What
sir.
do I need to do?
Yes, sir. Simple
So-
question. What would you put there?
So now,
Yeah.
we complain when there's a problem because that's kind of life.
All right, thank you, sir. Next up is Reverend James Harrison.
Good evening to the Planning Commission members, Mr. Bryan, Chairman, and to those citizens who are with us tonight. My name is James Mitchell Harrison. I live at 658 Old Town Road in Surrey. However, I represent 228 people who attend Main Street Baptist Church at 517 Main Street. Couple of comments. We were in attendance at the town council meeting on last week, and I wanted to ensure that the public understood that Main Street Church is not against development. I would imagine that at some point development is going to happen. However, we are concerned about safety, accessibility for all, and an orderly growth in our community and town. I'm in my 27th year now serving as pastor, and 5 of those years were spent living in the church manse next door to the parsonage, next door to the church. We support the idea of a best management practice, stormwater runoff pond, to be underground. I had an opportunity on Sunday to take several members out back in on our church property to show them what the underground BMP looked like and how it worked. And they were, I think, very impressed. We installed it when we made the addition, the 11,000 square feet addition to the church in 2013. We also have at the Covenant Place Apartments project at 601 Cedar Street, another rendition of a BMP pond. This one is above ground. And had we known and understood the difference in the two in 1991 when Covenant Place was built, we would have opted for the underground pond. We support an underground detention system should this development become reality. We believe this will be safer in the proposed location of one of the BPMs proposed in the new development. I understand that there is possibility that there will be more than one. We do support an underground detention system. We are not against development.
Thank you, sir. Reverend Harrison? Same question to you. Suggestions, what would you put there? If it was up to you, what would you put there?
Well, one of the things that I would love to see there, of course, is housing. You know, housing means, Mr. Bryan, larger church rolls. But I would do it with much consideration to green space. When we developed Evergreen Acres, one of the things that was a big concern was the idea of green space. And the underground BMP gave us an opportunity to further contribute to the idea of green space. And even then, when we were doing design charrettes for that particular development, we were looking at and hoping to consider walking trails, greenery, adding to that aesthetic value of being outside. We wanted to be outside. And porches. We did a lot of porches because that was what people were asking for. We gave the citizens, not just the members of the church, an opportunity to participate in that design charrette. And we hope that that might be the case here as well. But that's what I would look for. It is housing, but I would do it with consideration to more green space.
Thank you, sir. Next up, we have Mrs. Susie Gay.
My name is Susie Gay. I live at 110 Goose Hill Way. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission. After nearly 18 months of communication, coordination, and deliberation with you, we citizens think we have made a compelling argument that the Grange at 10 Main proposal is neither complete nor acceptable, and that the lead developer has shown little or no respect for the work you did collectively last spring to bound the PMUD zoning criteria to ensure conformity with the Smithfield Historic District. We also think that the farmers market piece of the proposal is simply a dead-on arrival red herring that indebts the town unreasonably and excessively. We acknowledge the appraisal by one of you that this proposal is much more comprehensive than the one submitted by Mr. Darden and Ms. Venable 8 years ago. But the fact is that more is not necessarily better, rather better is better. And this proposal is certainly not better in the aggregate for the citizens of Smithfield. We have documented painstakingly the potential impact of unbearable traffic, the hazards of flood water retention, the projected costs of educating the children involved, and the heavy burden of taxpayer debt involved for a lengthy period of time to reimburse the developer's infrastructure costs. And those of us in town, as you know, we pay double taxes. Lastly, we have tried to point out the rich Native Indian and colonial history of Pierceville's acreage in hopes that an eventual development, or better yet, an appropriate green space project pays tribute to that history. Another of you has opined that the 13 citizens who appeared before you at last month's public hearing comprised a not-in-my-backyard minority. We challenge that assessment. Those speakers came from throughout the historic district and nearby downtown. As Mr. Harris summarized 2 months ago, at least 4 independent and separate surveys have been conducted on the topic of Grange at 10 Main and public financing. In each case, the opposition has been overwhelming. Mr. Lanford, Pritchett's survey elicited response from more than 80 respondents from the town and county. Not one was in favor. I would also point out that 8 years ago, when my husband walked the historic district to petition against the Darden development, he secured more than 240 signatures, while only 4 citizens told him that they were okay with the development. One of those said he thought development would help to attract a Walmart. 2 told him they supported the property's development, but not the Darden proposal, as if we had a choice. And the 4th thought we were simply being elitist. My firm belief is that my husband would secure a very similar result if he walked the town once more. Finally, there is the argument that we are better off working with the developer we know. That might prove true if that developer showed any signs of working with you in return. This one has not. Moreover, Mr. Luter has told us that he plans to develop only the front acreage of the property. If we understand correctly, he plans to partner with the developer from Virginia Beach to construct the farmers market, retail spaces, hotel, and 4-story condominium apartment buildings, then sell the remainder of the acreage to his other partner from Suffolk to build the high-density retirement homes. We have not been provided with any high definition of what any of these structures would look like.
1 minute.
So we are left to consider the resume of their recent construction elsewhere. One need only look at the apartment condo complex on Jefferson Boulevard in Newport News, just south of the Whole Foods area, and the Retreat retirement subdivision just off Highway 17 in North Suffolk. Neither bears a tribute to anything but the words ordinary and unappealing, which is totally inappropriate for our unique town. We respectfully request a no vote to this development. Thank you. Yes, I'll answer your question.
What would you put there?
Okay. Along the 10 corridor, there's a lot of noise, so you really can't put any housing there. If you put housing, it would be towards the Goose Hill side with half-acre to 1-acre lots per house. You need a 50-yard competitive swimming pool. Our swim team needs something more than what's at the Y. We know about this because our son was a nationally ranked swimmer. It would be fantastic for the kids to develop something like that with a diving board. I also, for a diving team. And I also think all the gardens in that area, and of course, the things that the Baptist Church needs for the parking, and get rid of that retention pond.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Mrs. Mary Ellen Biebermeyer. I said Mrs., I apologize, I don't know.
I am
Miss-
Mrs., but
okay.
my name is Mary Ellen Biebermeyer, and I live at 355 Gray Street.
Biebermeyer.
I'd like to also voice some concerns regarding the Pierceville property, also known as the Grange project. The Planning Commission is tasked with keeping the entrance corridors to Smithfield within certain standards and guidelines as to the look and design of the buildings. Not too long ago, the Planning Commission rightly insisted that the design of the building for the DMV on South Church Street had to have certain look and finish to it to fit in with the architectural standards deemed important to Smithfield. This Grange project needs to have the same oversight, does it not? How does building a 3 or worse 4-story hotel building parallel to Main Street provide a welcoming, open atmosphere to downtown historic Smithfield? It's a wall, for goodness sakes. It's hardly welcoming or inviting. Are we building a concrete corridor? I don't think that it's within the guidelines or standards that the Planning Commission normally works so hard to maintain. While this developer may be the one that the town wants to work with, and fine, whatever, this may not be the right development for this specific area. There are too many unanswered questions at this point. Please do not support a PMUD for this development, or you will lose all oversight of this important, dare I say, most important corridor into Smithfield. My second concern is regarding the farmers market. There are still too many questions that remain unanswered regarding this part of the development. First of all, what is this building going to be used for? The current farmers market has a festive outside atmosphere where people congregate. It's a sign of spring and excitement when the farmers market opens. How is this new building going to be used? Is it an inside market or not? Forgive me for asking these questions, but who knows? We haven't seen any plans. Shouldn't we as taxpayers know how this building is going to be used, since we are paying a good portion of it? As town residents, we are paying $1.4 million for it, but we're also paying the county portion of $1.4 million as well. I'd like to know how $2.8 million of taxpayer money is going to be spent. In a time when indoor malls are in decline and closing, is it wise to build something that in reality is just an indoor mall? Malls all over Hampton Roads have closed in the last couple of decades. Newmarket and Coliseum malls in Hampton, as well as Military Circle Mall, MacArthur Mall, Pembroke Mall, and Chesapeake Square Mall have either closed or in great decline. What are we going to do if the farmers market closes? What are we going to do with this building? Why do we think Smithfield has the answer to indoor malls? I don't think so. I don't know anyone that goes to a farmer's market and wants an indoor atmosphere. The example that's given to us is one that's in Charleston, South Carolina. Don't get me wrong, I love Smithfield, but you cannot compare Smithfield to Charleston, South Carolina. They have a population of 150,000 people. You can't compare the two. I understand wanting to have a facility for rain days, et cetera, bad weather, but maybe a decent pavilion is all we would need, and that would be much cheaper. We need to be good stewards of taxpayer money. My last point, and certainly most important concern, is one that has not been addressed very well by the town or the developer. Where are the archaeological studies for this property? As the previous speaker said, this area used to be a Native American encampment. We know there has to be evidence of that. Since the Pierceville project dates back to the 1700s, we can wisely assume that enslaved persons lived, worked, and toiled on this very land. Where is evidence of their lives?
1 minute.
Just as important, where are their grave sites? They are there. How can we in good conscience cover their graves with concrete? To build houses and apartments over? Are you kidding me? That's what will happen if the archaeological work is not done. We've been told previously that the developer looked but didn't find anything. Really? How hard did they look? We know these graves are there. Look again and keep looking, for goodness sake. We owe this comprehensive study and due diligence to them and all those that lived and worked this land and the sacrifices that they made. With all these concerns, I recommend a no vote on the zoning changes proposed. Thank you.
Ms. Biebermeyer. Okay. Same question to you.
Yes.
Any suggestions what you would put there?
I like the idea of more green space. Obviously, other than the backfield itself, which is lovely green, the concrete, I get you. I don't want 3- and 4-story buildings there. It does not fit in with downtown. I don't mind extra stores, some housing, but the density is too much. I like community parks, community pools, things that benefit Smithfield. If we have a farmer's market there, let's make it an open-air farmer's market just like we have now. We don't need a closed-in building. That doesn't make any sense. It's just going to be an empty building that's going to sit empty, and we, the taxpayers, have paid for that. So I would welcome more community things. We need another hotel in Smithfield. I don't think this is the right place for it. Thank you.
Thank you. Last but not least, Mr. Jason Witcher.
Good evening, council members. A little too close. My name is Jason Witcher. I live at 325 Gray Street. I just have a few notes prepared here that I'd like for you to take under consideration for this development. First of all, Smithfield's a beautiful town. I think we all appreciate that. I think that Smithfield is well known as a tourist destination for the Hampton Roads region. There's a reason people come here. It's to escape the urban development that they see everywhere else, to escape the density and the traffic in the apartments, and come have somewhere to just walk around and enjoy themselves for the day. We have a lot of festivals and stuff in town here that people come to. They don't come here to see apartments or PMUD developments. Genuine Smithfield, that's the town slogan. Genuine downtowns, I think, don't have high-rise apartments buildings. They typically don't have new construction, high-density housing. So that's something to take under consideration. Also, being that this is a planning commission, I think that it's fair to take the consensus of what you're hearing under advisement. I've heard a lot of people speak tonight and other nights against this development for various reasons, reasons such as traffic, density, not fitting in with the town. I think those are all convincing arguments that should be considered because we are the taxpayers. We live here, we pay the taxes. We should have some voice in what happens here. Just a few points I want to touch on too. Density, the previous developer 8 years ago was turned down because their development was too dense. It had roughly half the housing units that this current proposal has. I wonder why the current one's even under consideration besides the person that's behind the development. So why is it okay now to have that much density? Why use taxpayer money for any of it, for the farmer's market or any of the infrastructure? And speaking of the farmer's market, I come from an area in North Carolina that has an extremely large farmer's market. It's surrounded by a metropolitan area that's larger than Newport News, Hampton, and Norfolk combined, and also has many, many small towns around that feed the farmer's market. This farmer's market is very busy during the summer, but it basically sits dormant 6 months out of the year. So I wonder how a much smaller area like this can support anything for any amount of time. I think that people are pretty happy with the outdoor farmer's market where it is now. When people finish shopping at the farmer's market, they visit the stores and restaurants close by. If you move the farmer's market to the other end of the street, it's very unlikely that many people are going to walk all the way to the other end of the street to check that out. Also, people that are, at the end of Main Street where Church Street is, probably are not going to be prone to walk all the way down to where the farmer's market is supposed to be. So again, I wonder why we're being asked to pay for any of this. This is a lot of money. It's a small town. Our taxes could be better used other ways. But I do understand it's privately owned land, and the developer does have certain rights to develop it. To answer the question I've asked many people previously, I don't really have the perfect answer for this. I think along Main Street should be kept mostly open space, definitely some parking for the Baptist church. Also for people that come to town for the festivals, because when people do come to town, there's not a lot of parking. They're kind of squeezing in here and there and everywhere. So it would be good to keep the area across from the church, a nicely landscaped, scenic area that's a nice welcome to the town, that does have parking for people that do come to visit. And of course, behind there, along Kerry Street, a lower density development would be nice, something like Goose Creek or Jericho Estates. Obviously, money could be made from a development such as that. I know the developer wants to maximize their money, but I feel like the town is being bullied into doing everything that the developer wants to do to fill their pockets. So that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Richard. Thank you. That's the last name signed up for speaking during this public comment section. It's Planning Commission. Item number 4 is Planning Commission comments. Okay. I think I will take the lead on this. Maybe set some tone here. But I've listened to you, and there are several things I would like to address or question. As a planning commission, we are tasked with fact-finding and advising town council on any application that comes before us. We do not have the luxury of basing our opinion or our decision on what we feel. We have ordinances that give us guidance, and we have to be objective and apply those ordinances. Okay? And I understand your concern. You brought up some valid points. I really do understand them. But hopefully we can come up with solutions to mitigate and perhaps solve some of these things, possibly make the application viable or pleasing. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying approve, I'm not saying I personally approve. I'm still sitting on the fence about this. But taking in your comments and what I hope to hear from my fellow commissioners tonight, maybe I can come to a decision. Okay? Now, there was points that were made during the speech. People concerned about expense, what it's going to cost the taxpayer. Understand, and Attorney Riddick, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but understand, approval of this application does not spend taxpayer money. That is a decision, depending upon what we send to town council, that town council will deal with. They would deal with that. The proffers, taxpayer money, all that expense, covering infrastructure and such, that is their responsibility. It does not mean it is paid, it does not mean it will happen, it would not mean it's spent if the application is approved. I'm saying if it's approved. Walkability. Some people think it does not provide walkability. I really suggest you look carefully at the conceptual plan, the drawing that the applicant presented. And they have made revisions to this effect. There is walkability in this project. They've added sidewalks. They've adjusted their conceptual plan, they've adjusted to make it more walkable. So I think that is something that is debatable. It's not a no, yes. There's no walkability in this. It is. Park pool, suggested. That's fine. But who will pay for it? If the town does it, it's your taxpayer money. Who's going to pay for it for putting that there, for putting those things there? Widening 10 Main. Some people think it is not being done, but if you look at the conceptual drawing, there is widening at that intersection at 10 and Main. There is widening provided by the developer in this plan. Okay? And just to add, it's not on the table, but there are people who are willing to lobby VDOT to add a ramp, an off-ramp from Mill Swamp Road on the 10 that would possibly eliminate a lot of traffic going down Kerry Street. This is separate from the development. But there are people who are willing, who are ready to lobby VDOT to possibly have that done. Okay? So again, I suggest you look at the drawing itself and really look at the intersection of 10 and Main. The developer is adding some value there, infrastructure, widening that intersection. Housing, green space. Well, there's housing that would come with that, and there's green space that would come with that. Swim pool, that's up to the developer, that's up to them. The comment was made, PMUD. If this was passed, it would take away the Planning Commission oversight. That is not true. The Planning Commission, that is our purpose. Regardless of whether it's a waiver, a special use permit, an exception, whatever it is, and regardless of the zoning, PMUDs, suburban residential, downtown residential, historic district, the Planning Commission still has oversight on what is presented and recommended to town council. We do have oversight. And that'll be addressed in the application. With that, I would like to hear other commissioners' comments. Please let the public know what is your issue, where you hung up at, what do you support.
Mr. Bryan, this is coming up, it's your last action item on the agenda?
Yes.
That's probably the best
Yes.
time for everybody to speak to that?
Okay, I'll accept that. But no, I'm expecting comments. The public is expecting your comments. Town council is expecting your comments. Be ready. When that comes up, be ready. Now, is there anything else any other commissioner want to speak to at this time? In general, not necessarily this application, but in general, does anyone else has any other concerns or comments that they would like to make at this time for the Planning Commission?
No.
No, you're not a member. Please.
But you didn't ask,
No, this is Planning Commission comments agenda.
but after everybody said what they had to say, this is the second meeting I came to, and I wanted to say my part.
You missed that opportunity, ma'am.
No, you didn't ask.
No, the list is back there to sign up. And this is not going to be discussed. The list was back there. I'm sorry, if you were late, I'm sorry.
I wasn't late.
Okay.
There was not a chair for me, and I wasn't going to barge in.
I asked when I started this meeting, was there anybody at the last minute who wanted to sign up? Okay.
Mr. Bryan, before you move on, can I say something, please?
Yes, sir.
I'm a big boy, and so I take my medicine when I should. And I want to apologize sincerely to the Planning Commission for my comments at the last Planning Commission meeting. My statements were not directed at any of you, and certainly not to Dr. Pope. He said something that was attributed to someone else that caused me to offer remarks, and certainly it was not anything that you said, Dr. Pope, and certainly my comments were not directed to you. My response to you is in defense of both the Town Council and the Planning Commission, because you're my clients, and I'm a lawyer, and I defend my clients. And when I know there are false claims being made, then I rise to the occasion, and that's what I did. I know that none of you, nor any member of the Town Council, is engaged in any illegal or improper conduct or meetings with the developer or anyone else.